So CNN's Brian Stelter says his friends in LA told him that 99.9% of the city is just fine. Coincidentally, 99.9% is also his body fat. In LA, rioters held up Mexican flags to protest people being deported to Mexico. That's like holding up a pride flag to protest being deported to John Travolta's ass. Makes no sense. California Governor Gavin Newsom and Mayor Karen Bass denounced the federal immigration raids. So now they don't want California to have ice or water.
Hold your applause.
According to ICE, the migrants arrested in LA included convicted sex offenders and drug dealers. Wow, no wonder so many people called in sick at Nickelodeon.
Oh, well done.
Thank you. When Maxine Waters tried to enter an ICE detention center, she had the door slammed in her face. The same thing happened when she tried to enter Supercuts. Just mail your hair in, lady. Kamala Harris said the Los Angeles protests were overwhelmingly peaceful, just like her water is overwhelmingly vodka.
LA is burning. The LAPD is overwhelmed.
We are overwhelmed as far as the number of...
Newsom dares them to arrest him?
So, Tom, arrest me. Let's go.
LAPD is under attack. Is Trump lying or is Newsom lying? These are just a few of the questions we're going to answer. This is the Vazquez Report.
I know, because if we say that they've lit it on fire, they get mad at us. So
While the LA is burning, the left-wing media and the Democrats are saying that these protests are mostly peaceful. Let's hear what that side has to say about it.
The vast majority of protesters and demonstrators are peaceful. They're passionate. When you come into a community like Los Angeles, the way that the Trump administration has, you need to expect to be countered with people who are passionate about defending fundamental rights.
The reality is we see peaceful protests launching in Los Angeles. And again, any violence against police officers should not be accepted. Local authorities can handle that. But remember, a lot of these peaceful protests are being generated because the President of the United States is sowing chaos and confusion by arresting people who are showing up for their immigration hearings, who are trying to abide by the law.
Now let's look at the reality of the fact that protests are not mostly peaceful. Let's look at Fox News discuss exactly what's going on in the LA riot.
Now, before I get your take on this, we just remembered on June 3rd, 2020, you wrote an op-ed in the New York Times that caused a little controversy, if you might recall. Tom Cotton, send in the troops. The nation must restore order. The military stands ready. And now here we are again, sir.
Yeah, Dana, what we can't allow in this country is lawless violence against innocent civilians, against property, against federal personnel and federal facilities. I'm not sure what pictures and video Cory Booker saw from Los Angeles, calling it peaceful protests. What I saw was uncontrolled rioting. You had cars being set on fire, law enforcement being pelted with bricks and cement and frozen water bottles. You had people blocking not just city streets, but major highways, and attacks on both local and federal law enforcement. We simply can't allow that. Mm-hmm. We always hope that the local police are able to control the situation. Sometimes Democratic politicians, like the Democratic mayor in Los Angeles, may not let them control it. But if not, we have a responsibility to protect innocent lives and property in this country. That's what President Trump has said. That's why he called out the National Guard and why he stands ready, if necessary, to use active duty troops under the authority of the Insurrection Act to put an end to this violence. That's why we in Congress are acting as well. I'm introducing legislation that will increase penalties for rioters or those who attack law enforcement, that would make a deportable offense to engage in such crimes. And our big plan, not just to prevent the largest tax increase in history, but to provide ICE and immigration authorities with the money and the resources they need to continue to secure our border and to deport violent, illegal criminals.
Now that we heard from both sides, let's see the escalation that occurred. Apparently, Newsom and Karen Bass, the governor and mayor of LA, respectively, Newsom being the governor of California, were slow to react, causing Trump to deploy the National Guard. Let's see what Trump has to say about the LA riots.
You have to remember, I've been here before, and I went right by every rule, and I waited for governors to say, send in the National Guard. They wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it, and they just wouldn't do it. It kept going on and on, got worse and worse. And in Minneapolis, that city was burning down 7 days, and I said, I don't care. The governor, who's a governor that just happened to be running for vice president, a total, you talk about an incompetent governor, he's an incompetent person. This guy wouldn't call the National Guard, and we ultimately just sent in the National Guard. We stopped it, but that was after 7 days. And I said to myself, if that stuff happens again, we've got to make faster decisions because they don't want it. It's usually radical left, and it's usually governors that are Democrat, and they don't want to call them in. They don't want to save lives. They don't want to save property. They don't want to call them in. I don't know what it is. We sent them in, not early, we sent them in late as far as I'm concerned. But big problems, as you know, 3 nights ago, big problems were ensuing. If we didn't send in the National Guard quickly, right now, Los Angeles would be burning to the ground.
Of course, the left-wing media and the Democrats would have you believe that everything was fine before Trump got involved and Trump deployed the National Guard and Marines, but it wasn't. Let's look and see just what damage was done before Trump stepped in.
The LA riots have nothing to do with Donald Trump. He lives in D.C. He didn't melt Waymos and loot sushi joints. Illegals are firebombing the LA freeway, and Democrats are calling Trump the terrorist.
This is absolutely unconscionable, what's going on. I had never thought in my life that I would be seeing this sort of disruption and this sort of terrorism attack on our citizens, on our community.
The National Guard's not the one torching cars and waving Mexican flags around on dirt bikes. They called ICE the Gestapo, the police Nazis, and the National Guard terrorists. These politicians are actually firebombing their own party. Trump's the only one doing the job.
Let's dispel the myth right now how President Trump does not have the authority to deploy the National Guard or the Marines. He does have the authority under Title 10. If you look at the law, which is explained more in detail in this clip.
With the president's order and National Guard troops mobilizing to understand the legal limits of presidential power, I spoke with Professor Kindra Rotunda, a leading expert in military and international law at Chapman University and executive director of the Military and Veterans Law Institute.
Can you walk us through the legal authority that the president has to mobilize a state's National Guard, especially when that state's governor objects?
Right. Well, the law is actually squarely on President Trump's side. Under 10 U.S.C. 1230, so it's a federal law, the president can activate National Guard members if he determines, one, that there is a national emergency, or if there is what he thinks an insurrection underway. And so he's really the only decider of that decision. It's one of his powers of the executive branch. So really, I think this dispute is much ado about nothing. President Trump simply has the authority.
Is there a legal threshold that has to be met to declare a national emergency or insurrection, or is that ultimately a judgment call by the commander-in-chief?
It's a judgment call. I mean, we leave a lot of important matters in the hands of our commander-in-chief. So he really has the final say on whether or not to activate Guard members.
And here goes Gavin Newsom saying, here, don't look at me, look at Trump. He's the one who made it worse, pointing the finger at someone else for him not acting in time.
Might just say to him, if I'll give you the floor, you have the opportunity, what you weren't able to say to him on that phone call or calls that he hasn't taken today.
Where's your decency, Mr. President? Stop. Rescind this order. It's illegal and unconstitutional. And I said it, I'll say it again, it's immoral. You're creating the conditions that you claim you're solving, and you're not. And you're putting real people's lives at risk. This is a serious moment, and it requires serious leadership. And it's time for you to be a commander-in-chief of the United States of America. And I will have your back if you want to work in a relationship of trust and truth in the spirit of our founding fathers. But you come after poor kids, you come after families, we will do everything in our power to stand up and stand in your way.
Fox News alert: California Governor Gavin Newsom is blaming President Trump for the riots in Los Angeles after a judge rejected Newsom's motion to block the Marines and National Guard from deploying.
This brazen abuse of power by a sitting president inflamed a combustible situation, putting our people, our officers, and even our National Guard at risk. California may be first, but it clearly will not end here. Other states are next. Democracy is next. Democracy is under assault before our eyes.
If you get value from this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss these regular updates. It really helps out the channel. Also, support the channel. Buy us a cup of coffee. Anything that you donate is deeply appreciated. Then the lying started, saying that Gavin Newsom was not alerted, was not called by Trump. Trump did not call him. They had no conversation prior to anything happening. But Trump was smarter than that. He brought the receipts and sent it to Fox News. Watch Gavin Newsom get called out for lying.
Between Gavin Newsom and President Trump. Gavin Newsom, after President Trump said in the noon hour in the Oval Office that he called him yesterday or the other day, Gavin Newsom tweeted the following. He said, quote, "There was no call, not even a voicemail. Americans should be alarmed that a president deploying Marines on our streets doesn't even know who he's talking to." Well, President Trump contacted me from Air Force One on his way to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, where he'll be in just a little while. He said the first call to Gavin Newsom was not picked up. The second call Gavin picked up. We spoke for 16 minutes. I told him to essentially, quote, and this is quoting the president, "get his ass in gear and stop the riots, which were out of control more than anything else. This shows what a liar he is." Said I never called. So here is the evidence. And here is the call log that the president sent me from his phone. This was June the 7th. Now, granted, this was on Saturday. But look, there's 1:22 o'clock in the morning. Which would have been 10 o'clock at night, 10:22 at night, California time. There was an outgoing call for 4 seconds. And then there was an outgoing call for 16 minutes. So that from the president, which says is proof that he spoke to Gavin Newsom early in the morning, our time, late at night, Friday night, would have been June 6th, I guess, in Los Angeles.
It's essentially what he has there is the receipt for what he says is the call that was made.
It's all about
and
the
long
receipts.
conversation.
Then there was a big news story of a soundbite that Tom Homan threatened to arrest the governor of California, Gavin Newsom. Let's see what he actually said in this clip.
One of his toughest critics right now is, of course, California Governor Newsom. We want to give you a chance to respond. Governor Newsom, in an interview with NBC News, said that he said, quote, "just get it over with," in terms of you arresting him. He says, quote, "he's a tough guy. Why doesn't he do it? He knows where to find me. So, Tom, arrest me. Let's go." That was the governor of California talking to you.
And here goes Tom Homan basically dispelling the myth about him threatening to arrest Gavin Newsom.
Look, I'm not biting on that. The NBC reporter that interviewed me very dishonest. We did a 20-minute interview, and he cuts out a little clip that makes me and takes my words out of context. Here's what we said. And he talked about when I talked about these people that are these protests and rioting. When they cross the line, they got that. Well, here's why I said they have a right to protest. They have the First Amendment rights, but they can't cross that line. They can't cross that line of impediment. They can't cross that line of putting their hands on officers. They can't cross the line of knowing, concealing, and illegal alien, because they're all federal crimes. They're in statute, and they will be prosecuted. When he asked the questions that include Mayor Bass and Governor Newsom, I was clear. They haven't crossed the line, but they're not above the law either. If they commit a crime, they certainly will ask for prosecution. That's what was happening. I never threatened to arrest Governor Newsom, so I'm not biting off on that. It's just that reporter's dishonest, and let him play the whole 20-minute interview, and you'll see a whole different discussion that we had.
President Trump called Gavin Newsom out and basically said that if he were Tom Homan, he would arrest him. This is a funny clip when he got asked this by reporters. Check this out.
Gavin Newsom he's daring Tom Homan to
come and arrest him. Should he do it? I would do it if I were Tom. I think it's great. Gavin likes the publicity, but I think it would be a great thing. He's done a terrible job. Look, I like Gavin Newsom. He's a nice guy, but he's grossly incompetent. Everybody knows. All you have to do is look at the little railroad he's building. It's about 100 times over budget. We're putting a flagpole over there. Under budget. I always do under budget.
Attorney General Pam Bondi gives Governor Newsom an earful for his handling of the LA riot. She issues a stern warning for those LA rioters who seek to loot stores and violate the law, which includes assaulting police officers.
State's Attorney General Pam Bondi. Madam Attorney General, thanks so much for joining the program.
Thanks, Lawrence.
So tell me about this lawsuit and what do you make of the governor blaming the president for the actions of illegals in this country, not abiding by the court order, the warrants to come pick them up, and the protesters that are now activists that are throwing stuff at the cops?
Well, Lawrence, evidently, Gavin Newsom has not been out to the scene. He has not turned on the television set to see the incredible amount of violence that is happening in Los Angeles. President Trump is going to make America safe again. We're going to protect Americans, and that includes Californians. If Gavin Newsom isn't going to protect them, we are. He also failed to declare an economic disaster. Had he done that, Kelly Loeffler and the Small Business Administration could have come in and helped all those businesses that were being looted. We could have given them federal funding, but he's refusing to help even his own small businesses in California. And if you loot a business in California during this, we're charging you with robbery under the Hobbs Act. No longer are the days of non-prosecution for looting. It's a criminal act. You've seen on the news all these stores being burglarized, vandalized. We've also seen, Lawrence, all of our police officers, all of our federal, state, local law enforcement officers being abused out there trying to keep California safe. Jointly, we've all made over 190 arrests, more coming. If you hit a police officer, you assault a police officer, state or federal, we are coming after you. So Molotov cocktails, no longer.
These people are being identified now because COVID gave them the facial recognition software to be able to detect who is in the masks, even if you have your face covered, which is something they didn't account for, I guess, when they started rioting. Let's look and see an investigation that's ongoing into one of the rioters who is on the most wanted list.
So tell us, the other day, I think it was a couple of days ago on Sean Hannity's show, you released the FBI warrant out for this masked guy that was throwing bricks at the cops. What's the latest on that investigation? And have you found the other individuals that were throwing the bricks at the cops?
Yeah. More charges coming. He is now on the most wanted list. He is on the run, and that's where he better be. He should turn himself in because he is looking at federal prison time. They're going to find you. He thought he could wear a mask and get away with this, but with our technology now and incredible law enforcement work with FBI, DEA, ATF, working with ICE, working with Homeland Security, we're coming after you. We're getting these videos. We're seeing what you're doing. We're finding you. This guy's face is all over the news now, and we are going to catch him.
Watch this charitable organization who is now giving ICE riot packs called PPE kits to rioters to help them.
And did you see on social media, I think we have a picture of it, the tactical gear that they're giving out to people who are rioting, and it's advertised on social media.
And
there it is.
There it is.
These are all the supplies you get if you go out there, according to Operation Healthy Hearts, which was that organization you were talking about, Brian.
Legal aid, travel, hotel stays, all that money and those equipment. Money goes into these organizations, and they're given out to the rioters. And guess who's firmly behind them? Gavin Newsom, who looks at Trump as the problem.
Are the LA ICE protests being funded by a billionaire? Anna Paulina Luna seems to think so. Let's hear what the Florida Oversight Committee Congresswoman had to say on the subject.
Joining us now is Oversight Committee member of Florida Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna. Congresswoman, looking at this chaos, who's funding it and why are they funding it?
So it's actually being funded by a billionaire by the name of Neville Singham. He's actually funding a group called the Party for Socialism and Liberation, which if you look online, they are a communist organization. What they're doing is they are using Hispanic Americans the way that BLM used Black Americans during these riots, and frankly, the way that Code Pink, which is also funded by the CCP, is using Palestinians. So what they're trying to do is they're using this to usher in Marxism. But it's important to note that actually when you find and you follow the money trail, Mr. Singham is actually largely funded by the Communist Chinese Party. So House Oversight has issued and will be sending a letter this Friday with all members of Oversight calling Mr. Singham to testify before Congress. If he does not appear and does not provide documents, he will then be held in contempt of Congress, and he will be prosecuted by the Department of Justice. We are not playing. This is a different administration. We have the Department of Justice, and if you interfere with American politics and are a foreign agent, you will be held accountable.
Congresswoman, just take a listen to President Trump and his orders to the Department of Justice that they will be looking into those left-wing groups fueling the violence in Los Angeles. Take a listen.
The agitators are throwing firebombs, Molotov cocktails, lighting vehicles ablaze, and attempting to infiltrate and occupy federal buildings wearing armor and face shields. The best money can buy, somebody's financing it. We're going to find out through Pam Bondi and Department of Justice who it is. They're already on it. Who's financing all this equipment? Very professional.
I would expect that the DOJ is going to get to the bottom of that.
Well, we are also assisting, and we already have the receipts. I can tell you that there is significant financial money trails. All you have to do is follow the money. Remember, so Neville Singham is actually financing the LA riots, but there's also other groups coming in. But they have different ideological perspectives, some backed by Soros that are globalists, and then obviously the Marxist organizations. But remember, this is a color revolution, right? They're using these immigrants as a guise for their real objective and goal here. And frankly, it's nothing different than what happened in the summer of love during the BLM riots right before the election. They're doing the same thing before the midterms, and Democrats are trying to get the Hispanic vote, so that's why they're using Mexican flags.
So there's several billionaires that might be financing the LA riots and the protests, and the paid agitators and insurrectionists that Trump was talking about during his Fort Bragg address may actually be a thing. With that being said, let's see how the Walmart heiress is now involved in the situation, along with everyone else.
Yeah, we also want to get, well, and also people flying flags from their, home country. If you love it so much, go back, right? But Congresswoman, I want to get you on this. I want to talk to you about Christy Walton. So she's a Walmart heiress. She has been calling for June 14th, this Saturday, to be a No Kings protest across the country. Congresswoman, we've already seen the violence in Los Angeles right now. So what is she really calling for here?
Well, look, I'm the first elected Mexican American to the House of Representatives from the state of Florida. So clearly they are not listening to what Hispanic Americans want, which largely voted in favor of President Trump's policy on immigration, because we understand what happens to our communities. People like Miss Walton, who are leftist liberals that have been basically spoon-fed their wealth and opulence, have no idea what the impacts are on the immigrant communities that come here illegally, that are being hired, not actually given access to the American dream. And what I would say is people like her are actually responsible for some of the impact negatively that the American people have had to go through in regards to people that have been coming here criminally that have been hurting Americans. So actually, you saw today that Walmart issued a statement distancing themselves from what I would say is the black sheep of the Walmart family. And what I would also go forward and a step further and say is that these left-wing organizations, these are the same people that when Governor DeSantis sent illegals to Martha's Vineyard, they waved them and gave them sandwiches and said, see you later, after they called in the National Guard to remove them. These are fake. This is a fake outcry. They're using minorities, and I'm not here for it.
Which brings me to the questions of this video. Do you feel as though the riots will start to be contained? Do you feel as though this would have been avoided if Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass had stepped in immediately following the violent protests that started? Let me know how you feel about these questions in the comment section below. In case you missed it, there was a full explanation about the feud between President Trump and Elon Musk, the world's richest man and the world's most powerful man. If you missed the full breakdown, don't worry, because it's coming up right here.